All right, so today we are going way back in time to ancient Egypt.
Going deep.
A deep dive into the story of Akhenaten.
Yes.
This is a pharaoh
Mm-hmm.
who made some really big bets
He did.
when it came to shaking up his society.
Yeah.
And, our listeners, you guys are really into leadership
Yes.
and innovation, and this story has
It does.
both in spades.
Absolutely.
So we are going to unpack what happened
Yeah.
and how it relates to the challenges that leaders face even today.
I think what's so fascinating about Akhenaten is that he didn't just try to make, like, small changes. He went for this complete religious and cultural overhaul.
Right.
And that's what we're digging into today.
Yeah. I've always found it kind of wild how central religion was to ancient Egypt. It's almost like every aspect of life was woven into
It's true.
the fabric of their belief system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where the gods weren't just figures of worship. They were
Yeah.
totally embedded
Yeah.
in every aspect of power and politics.
Mm.
The pharaoh, for instance,
Mhm.
wasn't just a king.
Right.
He was considered the intermediary between the divine and the people,
Wow.
maintaining Mat, this concept of cosmic order. That was like the pharaoh's ultimate responsibility.
Yeah.
So religion and power, completely inseparable.
So if religion equals power, the priests must have been serious power players, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially the priests of Amun,
Okay.
who was one of the most prominent gods in the pantheon.
Right.
They were major stakeholders in the existing system.
Which makes what Akhenaten did even crazier.
Yeah.
He comes to power and is basically like, nope, we're not doing that anymore.
Right.
He starts promoting an aspect of the sun god Ra,
Right.
but then takes it a step further.
He does?
He elevates Aten to be the one true god.
Wow.
We're talking full-blown monotheism in a society that had been worshiping a whole crew of gods for centuries.
Yeah.
That's like walking into a board meeting and saying we're scrapping everything and starting over.
That's a great analogy. And just like in a company, not everyone is going to be happy about that kind of sudden shift in direction.
Right.
And Akhenaten's actions were definitely met with resistance,
Yeah.
especially from those who benefited from the old ways.
Of course.
The ones who like their comfortable positions of power.
It makes you wonder why even risk it.
Right.
Was Akhenaten truly a believer in Akhenaten? Or was this like a strategic power play to weaken the priesthood?
It's a question
Oh.
that historians still debate today.
Right?
Yeah.
How can we possibly know
Yeah.
someone's true motivations from thousands of years ago?
It's really hard to say for sure, but some argue that his writings and hymns dedicated to Aten suggest a genuine religious fervor.
Okay.
They point to the radical shift in art and culture during his reign as evidence of a true believer,
Yeah.
trying to reshape the world in the image of his faith.
But then others suggest it was a calculated move to consolidate his own power.
Right, because by elevating Aten, he cut off the priesthood's access to resources and influence.
It's true.
So it's like,
Who knows?
it could be any of those things,
Right.
or all of them.
It could have been a combination of factors.
Exactly.
A genuine belief coupled with a very keen awareness of the political landscape.
Right.
Maybe he saw a way to achieve both spiritual and worldly goals
Totally.
simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's like the classic innovator's dilemma.
It is.
Right? You
Yeah.
have this radical vision,
Yes.
but to make it happen,
Right.
you have to navigate this complex web of existing power structures and beliefs.
It's tricky.
And Akhenaten wasn't just dealing with theological debates.
Right.
He was taking on a whole system.
He was.
Talk about a high-stakes game.
Huge stakes.
And he didn't stop there.
No, he didn't.
Akhenaten went as far as to move the entire capital city.
Can you imagine
What?
the logistics of that?
I know, it's insane.
It's wild.
He built a new city.
He did. Akhenaten.
Which we now know as Amarna.
Amarna.
It's like the ultimate act of starting from scratch.
It is.
New city,
Yep.
new religion,
New religion.
new rules.
The whole thing.
He was building a world that completely embodied his vision,
Wow.
free from the shackles of the past.
It's true.
Think about companies like Apple moving their headquarters to Silicon Valley,
Right.
or leaders restructuring teams to foster innovation.
It's all about creating that environment where change can flourish.
This is where it gets really interesting for me.
Okay.
Akhenaten clearly understood the power of symbolism and environment in driving change.
He did.
He knew that to truly shift beliefs, you sometimes need to shift the very landscape in which people live and operate.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It is. It's almost like he was creating this giant sandbox for his new society.
Yeah.
This blank canvas,
Right.
a chance to completely rethink city planning architecture,
Yeah.
even art itself.
And the art from that period is mind-blowing.
It is.
It breaks so dramatically from the traditional rigid style of ancient Egyptian art.
Totally.
You see these elongated figures, more expressive faces. It's almost like Akhenaten was pushing for a more human, less idealized representation of life.
Exactly. It's like you can see that cultural shift playing out in the art.
Mm-hmm.
And for someone interested in innovation, that's a powerful lesson.
Yeah.
Sometimes to truly innovate, you have to be willing to break the mold.
Totally.
Even when it comes to something as fundamental as artistic expression.
It makes you wonder, though, what was it like for the artists of the time?
Oh, yeah.
Were they excited by this new freedom?
All right.
Or terrified to deviate from centuries of tradition? Talk about pressure.
It probably felt like being told, okay, forget everything you know about painting.
Right.
We're doing things differently now.
Wow, yeah.
But there's a cautionary tale here, too, isn't there?
Yeah.
Akhenaten's grand experiment,
Right.
for all of its ambition and innovation, ultimately didn't last.
That's right. It's like the story took this unexpected plot twist.
It did.
Akhenaten dies.
It does.
And his son, Tutankhamun,
Yeah.
that King Tut,
Yeah.
he takes over.
He does.
And what does he do?
Basically hits the reset button on everything.
Okay.
Akhenaten had tried to change.
Wow.
Tutankhamun's reign became like a restoration project.
Really?
The old gods back in business.
Wow.
The temples that Akhenaten had closed reopened.
Oh.
Amarna, the gleaming city of the future, abandoned, left to crumble in the desert.
It makes you realize that even the most radical,
I know.
the most dramatic changes aren't always permanent.
It's true.
It's like that saying, the only constant is change.
Yeah.
And sometimes that change means going back to what,
It's true. And I think Akhenaten's story is a really good reminder that true lasting change isn't just about having a bold vision.
Right.
It's about bringing people along on the journey with you.
Yeah.
And he really underestimated the importance of building consensus,
Yes.
of winning over those who held the reins of power,
Right.
those who were invested in the old ways.
Of course.
He may have had the vision,
Yeah.
but he didn't have the buy-in.
That's such a critical point for leaders today.
It is.
You can have the best product,
Right.
the most innovative idea,
Totally.
but if you haven't built that coalition of support,
Yes.
if you haven't convinced people that your vision is worth fighting for,
Right.
it's likely to crumble just like Amarna.
Exactly. Akhenaten's story is like this powerful, if somewhat tragic,
Right.
illustration of that principle.
Yeah.
He had a new religious paradigm, a radically different approach to art and culture,
Right.
but he fumbled the how.
Yeah.
He failed to build those necessary alliances to bring the people he needed along with him.
And there's an even wilder twist to this story.
Yeah.
You know how some leaders, even if they're not successful in their time,
Right.
they still leave a legacy?
Yeah.
Well, Akhenaten's story is almost the opposite.
It is.
He was practically erased from history.
That's right after his death. There was this deliberate attempt to wipe out all traces of his reign.
Wow.
His name was chiseled off of monuments. His statues were defaced.
Wow.
It wasn't until centuries later, when archaeologists rediscovered Amarna,
Right.
that his story even began to reemerge.
It makes you think about the power of controlling the narrative, doesn't it?
It does.
Those who came after Akhenaten,
Yeah.
they understood that to solidify their own power, they needed to discredit his legacy,
Right.
to make sure that his version of history didn't stick.
Absolutely.
Hmm?
It's a reminder that history is often written by the victors.
Yeah.
But what's even more interesting is that even with that attempted erasure, Akhenaten's story still resonates today.
It does.
Thousands of years later, we're still talking about him, debating his motives, trying to understand the forces that drove his radical experiment.
And that's the power of a good story, right?
It
makes you think, it sparks debate,
It does.
and it offers valuable lessons, even if the ending isn't a happy one. It's funny how even after thousands of years, the stories of these ancient rulers still feel relevant.
It's true. It's like you said, it's not just about dusty tombs and forgotten cities.
Right.
It's about human nature,
Yeah.
ambition,
Right.
struggle for power.
Right.
Those things are timeless.
They are.
And Akhenaten's story, in particular,
Yeah.
offers some really valuable lessons for leaders and innovators,
Okay.
even today.
What else do you think we can take away from it?
Well, we've talked about the importance of building consensus,
Right.
of getting buy-in for your vision.
Yes.
But I think there's another layer to it, too,
Okay.
which is this ability to read the room, so to speak.
Read the room. What do you mean by that?
I'm talking about really understanding the social and political landscape.
Right.
Akhenaten was so focused on his grand vision
Okay.
that he failed to fully grasp
Yeah.
the deeply ingrained beliefs and power structures of his time.
He didn't see the bigger picture.
He underestimated the resistance he would face and the lengths to which his opponents would go to maintain that status quo.
So it's not just about having a great idea.
Right.
It's about understanding the playing field.
Yes.
Knowing when to push forward and when to tread carefully.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, pick your battles.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And choose your allies wisely.
Right.
Akhenaten alienated the priesthood,
He did.
a group that could have been so powerful
Right.
in implementing his reform.
Had he approached them differently?
Exactly.
It's like trying to launch a tech startup without considering the role of venture capitalists.
Yes.
Or the importance of building relationships with developers.
Right.
You're setting yourself up for failure before you even begin.
Exactly. And I'm not saying, compromise your vision entirely.
Right.
But understand that navigating these complex systems
Yeah.
often requires a more nuanced approach,
Okay.
one that involves collaboration,
Right.
compromise,
Yeah.
and a very, very deep understanding of the motivations of all the players involved.
It's like playing chess.
It is.
Right. You have to think several moves ahead,
Totally.
anticipate your opponent's reactions,
Right.
and be willing to adjust your strategy based on this ever-changing dynamics of the game.
That's a great analogy. And just like in chess, sometimes the most brilliant moves
Yeah.
are the ones that seem counterintuitive.
Okay.
The ones that involve sacrificing something small
Right.
to gain a strategic advantage in the long run.
Right.
Akhenaten, unfortunately, seemed to be playing a different game entirely.
Yeah.
He was so fixated on his own vision that he missed opportunities to build bridges and forge alliances.
Right.
That could have really helped solidify his legacy.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into ancient Egypt,
Yes.
what's the takeaway?
What's the takeaway?
For our listener who's fascinated by leadership and innovation,
Right.
what can they learn
What can they learn?
from Akhenaten's triumphs and his ultimate downfall?
I think the biggest lesson here is the importance of balancing bold vision with strategic pragmatism. Akhenaten reminds us that real change requires more than just a good idea.
It's true.
It requires a deep understanding of the social, political, and cultural landscape
Right.
in which you are operating.
Yes.
It requires building alliances, fostering buy-in,
Of course.
and being willing to adapt your approach when necessary.
It's about leading with both your head and your heart, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Having the courage to imagine a different future,
Yeah.
but also the wisdom to navigate the often messy realities of the present.
Yes, exactly. And that, I think, is the mark of a truly effective leader.
Okay.
Someone who can not only envision a better tomorrow, but also inspire others to help build it.
Akhenaten's story might have ended in ruins,
It did.
but his legacy of daring to dream big, of challenging the status quo,
Yeah,
that's something that continues to resonate.
it does.
He reminds us that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles,
It's true.
the human spirit
Yes,
yearns for progress,
it does.
for innovation, for a brighter future.
That's right.
And while his methods might have been flawed, his unwavering belief in the power of change
Yes.
serves as a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest lessons come from our grandest failures.
Beautifully said. And on that note,
Yeah.
we'll leave our listeners with this final thought.
Okay.
What bold moves are you willing to make? And how can you learn from both the successes and the failures
Right.
of those who came before you
Yeah.
to create lasting change that stands the test of time?
That's something for all of us to ponder.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll see you next time for another fascinating journey into the past, present, and future.
See you then.